Hello Year 3, welcome back to RE Virtual School. It is like spring all over again. This half term, we are carrying on our study of Judaism. So back in September and October, we looked at what do Jewish people believe, what are their stories that are important to them, what are the holy books and the prayers that they say and they look at. And this half term, we're looking at what do they actually do, what are their practices. So what kind of festivals do they have, where do they worship, how do they show their beliefs through action. Today's lesson is all about this question: what is a synagogue? I wonder if any of you know already what is a synagogue. Well, a synagogue is a Jewish place of worship. So for Christians, you have churches, for Muslims, you have mosques, and for Jewish people, you have synagogues as somewhere they go to practice their faith and their religion and to meet together as a community. This is just a reminder of the main symbol of Judaism. So this is the Star of David, which hopefully you recognise from back in September, and it is made up of two overlapping triangles. So you'll see that a lot when you're looking at Jewish practices and places of worship. So today we are going to learn about what happens in a synagogue. They can be huge buildings. So this one is one I've been to in Budapest, in Hungary, in Central Europe. And it's a grand building with lots of decoration, lots of light, really beautiful, stunning inside. Or it can be a much more modest building. So a lot of the ones that you'll find in London or around the UK, they're not as grand as the ones that you'd find in Central Europe. This one here is in East London, and it's sort of sandwiched in between two ordinary buildings. But I wonder if you could tell from looking at that how you would know that is a Jewish synagogue. Well, two main ways. Well, firstly, the Star of David on top, that's a really easy way to tell. But if you look carefully, it says the date, it says 5681 1921. Well, 1921 is when it was built, but Jewish people actually have a totally different calendar that dates back much further. So the year 1921 in the Christian European calendar is 5681 in the Jewish calendar. Okay, and we're going to be building detectives again. So looking at this building, this is the Bevis Marks Synagogue in the City of London. It's about a 20-minute walk from school to go and find this. And it's one of the oldest synagogues. I think it might be the oldest synagogue in the UK. Looking at this, I wonder if you can tell me how you would know that this was a Jewish building. So I can see a couple of ways. Firstly, like we just said, the calendar here, the clock, the date rather, not the clock, is in both the Western 1701 was when it was built, but also 5461. That is the Hebrew calendar. So you've got the Jewish calendar after Moses is what AM stands for, and 1701 after Christ. Here, this is an inscription in Hebrew, which is the language which Jewish people read. And Hebrew, interestingly, you don't read from left to right like we do English, you read from right to left. So you would start here and read across. You can also see, I wonder if any of you spotted this because it's quite well hidden, there is a Star of David on the top of this memorial and some Hebrew writing as well. So although it doesn't look like a particularly special building, if you think about some churches or even the Hindu temple in Neasden, they are stunning, huge, amazing buildings. This Jewish synagogue is not, but we can still tell, because we're building detectives, from the outside what it is. So using your booklet here, what you're going to want to do is label those three things that we've looked at and say, well, that's Hebrew writing, which is what Jewish people speak. This is a date using the Jewish calendar, and this is a Star of David. And this is what it looks like inside, a lot grander than it does outside. What do you notice? Can you think of any adjectives that you would use to describe this? Well, gold, for me, there's lots of gold, isn't there? Beautiful gold. And gold is very important in Judaism because it represents light, and light represents God and goodness. Same reason that they've got candles there. Same reason they've got lights around the back of the what's it called? It's called a bimah, which is where they have the Torah, which is the very important Hebrew Jewish book that we look at. So here we go. Behind the rabbi is where the Torah is kept in a box called an ark, and we'll see that in the next slide exactly what that looks like, because if we learned one thing about the Torah back in September, it was that they treat it with a great deal of respect. They spend a lot of time making sure that it's not damaged in any way. The rabbi stands in the center here, and they're the person in charge of leading the prayers in the synagogue, and then everybody else sits in these seats either side. And this is the ark on the left hand side. You've got Hebrew writing at the top. You've got the menorah as a symbol on here, which we'll come to in a couple of lessons' time. And these are the scrolls of the Torah. So if you remember, the Torah is the same as, partially the same as the Old Testament for Christians. And this is a really important text. This is where all the stories for Judaism come from. This is where their laws come from. This is where their information about God comes from. So they keep it really safe and secure. They keep it wrapped up. They don't even touch it with their hand. They use a yad. Do you remember the yad? The pointing stick with the hand on the end? So when they're reading, they can follow along from right to left without having to touch the text or touch the paper. So the Torah is really important to Jewish people. Right. We are going to watch a short video about what happens in the synagogue on Shabbat. And Shabbat, remember, that's the Sabbath, the day where they don't do any work, or they have a rest day. And then you're going to write three important things that you've spotted in this video in your notes. I'm going to turn off my camera and my microphone so that we can watch this video together. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Next lesson, we are going to look at what happens at a bar or bat mitzvah, which is really interesting. For Jewish children, when they're 13, they have a special service. So we'll look at that. Don't forget to fill out your booklet for today. Enjoy this video, and I will speak to you next week.
On Saturday morning, the whole family goes to synagogue.
Well, I don't know if I like worshipping at synagogue better than worshipping at home, but it is very different. At home, you're just in a family, but in the synagogue, it's just like you're in a whole group, a big group of people, loads of Jewish people. It's much more of a treat at synagogue because we're always at home and we're not always at synagogue.
Behind the curtain is a cupboard or ark where the Torah scrolls are kept. Jews believe that the Torah was given to us by God. The Torah tells us how God wants us to live our lives. Because for the Jews, the Torah scrolls are so special. They've got almost robes put around them. They've got velvet cloth with lots of decorations in silver and gold and jewels and things like that decorated on it. And it makes it even nicer because it looks nice and it feels nice. The scroll is very old, so we have to be careful. It's also very long. If you unrolled the scroll, it would be as long as a football pitch.
After the covers are taken off, the rabbi, our teacher, reads a part of the Torah in Hebrew.
ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו.
We follow along in a book, which is written in English and Hebrew, because not everybody can understand the Hebrew. At the end of the service, the scroll is put back in the ark and we wish our family and friends Shabbat Shalom.
But Shabbat isn't over until tonight.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It was lovely, wasn't it? Well, we'll be seeing him in Cambridge.
In the afternoon, we visit friends, but I really like it when we stay at home and relax.
Micha as well, they'll be coming too.
Oh, good, I love to see